Answer, and question number 1 is in the name of the Honourable David Cunliffe.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, to the Prime Minister, does he stand by his statement in 2011 that, quote, for the average New Zealand child, most of them are doing extremely well, close quote?
Right, Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, yes.
Mr Speaker.
Supplementary question, the Honourable David Cunliffe.
How can the Prime Minister say the average child is doing extremely well when 265,000 of them live in poverty, when 180,000 children go without things they need like shoes, and when 1 in 3 Māori and 1 in 3 Pacific children is in poverty?
Right, Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, firstly, I'd be interested in the Leader of the Opposition tabling the source that he keeps saying, that 1 in 5 New Zealand children only own 1 pair of shoes. Be very interested in this. That's what he's been saying, because we know from his speeches now that when he says 59,000 families will all get $60 a week for 52 weeks, it's not true. 25,000 of them get paid parental leave and won't get 52 weeks. And today we learnt that 15,000 currently get the parental tax credit and they won't get it for 52 weeks either. In fact, 1 in 3 families are the only people that will get $60 a week for 52 weeks of the year, and they are beneficiary families and the new working poor, according to Labor, who earn $150,000 a year.
Order. That question's now answered.
Mr
Supplementary
Speaker.
question, the Honourable David
Mr
Cunliffe.
Speaker, if the Prime Minister...
Order. Order. I've called the Honourable David Cunliffe.
Prime Minister can't answer that question. Perhaps he can answer these numbers. Mr Speaker, why does he oppose increasing ECE opportunities for kids when independent international evidence shows that for every dollar invested, $11 is returned in the long run, and when the Children's Commissioner's Expert Advisory Group report says that the economic cost of child poverty is around $6 billion a year?
Honourable Prime Minister.
So, Mr Speaker, the first thing is, if we want to move people out of poverty, and the way that poverty is defined in New Zealand, I think is 60% of the average wage, but if we want to move people out of poverty, by far the fastest way of doing that is through work. And this is a government that's pro-jobs, and that's an opposition that is opposed to jobs. Secondly, Mr Speaker, the member should get his facts right, because once again he's got it wrong. So in 2007-8, under the previous Labor government, $860 million was spent on ECE. The member says we're spending less, so how much are we spending now? Well, the answer is $1.5 billion. And as for less kiddies are getting it, well, actually, we now have 96% participation rate in ECE. So here's the top-line message, which you won't need to check the fine print for. 96% of kids, a record number, now enrolled in ECE. This government spending nearly twice as much as the previous Labor government.
Point of order, Mr Speaker. Point of order.
Point of order, the Honourable David Cunliffe.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I seek leave to table the article in Child Development Journal, Age 26, Cost-Benefit Analysis of the Child Parent Centre Early Education
Order.
Programme,
The document's
which
now
is
been...
the source of the 11-to-1 return figure.
The member will resume his seat. The document has now been suitably described to the House. Leave us sought to table that document. Is there any objection? There appears to be no objection. It can be tabled.
Point of order, Mr Speaker. Just a clarification. I think the Prime Minister might have been asking what the document referred to. I'm happy
the
to
member
answer.
please resume his seat if he wishes to continue. Leave was sought. I'll put the leave. The document has been tabled. That's the end of the matter. I invite the member now to continue.
Thank you. Point of order, Mr Speaker.
Supplementary. No, point of order.
Mr Speaker. I seek leave to table the Children's Commissioner's Expert Advisory Group report, which provided the $6 billion.
Order. Let me just clarify, has that not been presented to the House already?
I'm unaware whether that's been presented to the House or not, sir.
Well, on the basis the member's unaware that it's been presented to the House, it's easier that I put leave. Leave is sought to the table. The Expert Advisory Panel's work. Is there any objection to that being tabled? There appears to be none. It can be tabled.
Supplementary question.
Supplementary question, Louise Upson.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Supplementary question to the Prime Minister. Does working for families currently include a parental tax credit of $1,200 for parents of newborn babies? If so, how many families get that credit? And has he seen any reports that the $1,200 tax credit might be scrapped?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, yes, Working for Families currently does have a parental tax credit of $1,200 for parents of newborn babies. It's a $150 payment paid 8 times, or can be taken as one lump sum. Mr. Speaker, 15,000 families currently get that, and they are the same families that on Monday David Cunliffe told them they would get on top of that 52 weeks at $60 a week. In fact, those families will not get that. They'll only get 32 weeks. So maybe Mr. Cunliffe needs to explain. Well, we're shaking our head too, actually.
Order. That question now has also been answered.
Supplementary question.
Supplementary question, the Honourable David Cunliffe.
Given the Prime Minister's newfound enthusiasm for working for families, can he confirm that he voted against the introduction of working for families and described it at the time as, quote, communism by stealth?
That's right, John. Right Honourable Prime
Absolutely,
Minister.
and that is because under the old tax system and abatement rates under the previous Labor government, it was actually possible for people to lose more in abatement than they actually got. And by the way, today we've found the parental tax credit. Yesterday we discovered the paid parental leave. Mark my words, might be more news coming on misleading the public on that little bit as well.
Supplementary question.
Order. Supplementary question, the Honourable David Cunliffe.
Given that the Prime Minister has now shifted his position on working for families and has shifted his position on various coalition partners, can he tell the House whether he has also shifted his position on the following quote, that some mothers in receipt of such benefits are, quote, just breeding for business? Close quote.
Well,
right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, that was made in an article from memory in 2002 or 2003. And Mr. Speaker, that is a very long time ago. But Mr. Speaker, actually, I don't think we should have a welfare system that encourages people to stay on welfare. I think we should undertake the reforms this government has, which is actually to encourage people off welfare and into work. Because if the member really cares about poverty in New Zealand, then he'll move people, like this government is, off welfare and into work. We're doing it at 1,500 people a week. 17,000 people left the benefit last year. So the member gets up and says there are too many poor people, the majority of whom are on welfare, and his response is, stay there on welfare, don't get a job, back the policies of the Greens are anti-growth, see you at the election. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Supplementary question.
Order. Supplementary question, Honourable David Cunliffe.
Indeed it will, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, to the Prime Minister, why did National vote against paid parental leave when introduced in 2002 and again last year, yet last week shift its position to support it, just not as much as Labor? And is that because he thinks it's creating a welfare trap, or has he shifted his position again?
Right, Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I can't answer the first question in 2002. I'm not sure if it occurred when I was even in the House, because I came in 2002, and I can go and check that at the time. In terms of paid parental leave, here's a few facts that might be interesting to the New Zealand public. We currently pay 14 weeks of paid parental leave. It costs $165 million, and only 40%, I think, of people eligible, only 40% of people can take up the scheme. And that's because it's actually not well targeted, so not everybody gets it. There are lots of people who actually miss out. So what this member is saying... No, look...
Order.
Well, actually, here's a really interesting point. What this member is saying is that he wants to spend $500 and something million on this policy annually, and he's saying somehow he wants to be fiscally conservative. This is the only way through that. You have to tax more and spend less in other areas. And mark my words, when their caucus starts talking about, do you want more police officers? Do you want to pay teachers more? Do you want more cancer drugs? Do you want more of these things? They'll all be choking on their cornflakes.
That question has now been
Supplementary
answered.
question, Mr. Speaker.
Supplementary question, Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr. Speaker, can the Prime Minister confirm that he's got more positions than the Kama Sutra when it comes to tax policy? And does he consider it okay for National to give away $1 billion in tax cuts to the wealthy and tell other New Zealanders not to be jealous, but considers giving money to support kids and middle-income families is a spend-a-thon?
Mr. Speaker.
Order. Right, Honourable Prime Minister.
Firstly, from time to time, conditions will change, and as we've always said when it comes to paid parental leave, when there's more money, maybe it would be a nice thing to extend. I don't think the country can afford to go to 26 weeks. It may over time be afforded to go a little bit more. The member seems to think, as conditions change, slightly tweaking one's position's a bit odd. Was he having a bit of an amnesia fit about his own press conference last week when he did some backflip on a couple of other crazy policies? So things do change. But, Mr. Speaker, I'm glad... Actually, I'll happily answer the question. OK. Where does the top personal rate cut in New Zealand? $70,000 a year. Who's going to get his $60 a week for 52 weeks? Well, not many, as we now know, but some of them are going to be people earning 130, 140, 80, 90, 110,000. Guess what's happening to those people under Labour? The top personal rate's going up, mark my word, and guess what? Exactly, you said it. So, OK, virtually nobody's now going to get $60 a week for 50.
We'll have a private debate later on. Question number 2, Paul Goldsmith.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Paul Goldsmith.
My question is to the Minister of Finance and asks, what reports has he received indicating that progress in lifting economic growth will create new job opportunities and support higher wages in 2014?
Honourable Bill English.
Mr. Speaker, there's several such reports. Just this morning, Moody's, the credit rating agency, said the New Zealand economy and government finances were on an improving trend, and we remain one of only 10 countries with a top AAA rating and a stable outlook. The latest BNZ Business New Zealand Performance of Manufacturing Index confirms not just that the manufacturing crisis is over, but that there never was one. Manufacturing activity increased in every month in 2013. The first time this has happened in a year since 2007. Our manufacturing sector has enjoyed 15 consecutive months of expansion, I think starting about the time the opposition began its crisis hearings. That's consistent with the NZI's most recent business opinion survey, which showed confidence at a 20-year high.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Paul Goldsmith.
Supplementary to the Minister. What reports has he seen on trends in wage growth?
Honourable
Mr.
Bill
Speaker,
English.
contrary to statements that no one in New Zealand in the middle incomes has been getting ahead, in fact, average hourly wages have gone up 5.5% over the last 2 years, and weekly wages have gone up 6%, which is not a bad average, although we can't know the circumstances of every single family. Further to that, data released by Seek, the job website, which won't be shut down, we hope, when Facebook gets shut down, shows that across jobs advertised on the website, the average pay packet increased by 3% over the past year to an average of $74,000 per annum.
Supplementary question, Paul Goldsmith.
Supplementary to the Minister. How does this wage growth compare with inflation, and what does this mean for families?
Honourable Bill
Mr.
English.
Speaker, the data seems to contradict statements that have been made by the Leader of the Opposition. Over the past 2 years, Hourly wage rates have risen by 5.5%, weekly